Good afternoon, guys.
Well, first off, he turns down the job possibly twice here, and we had asked him about it. He said, this was a quick-moving process in terms of when he finally made the decision, but, was this something that maybe you guys were aware about beforehand, or was this kind of news today that you guys were like, wow, I can't believe that this just happened?
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise here. We did not know that this was coming down the pipe, and Dave Hakstol's been here for 11 years and was really, ingrained here kind of, I guess, as the head coach. So a lot of people surprised in Grand Forks today.
Was there times in the past that his name had been tied to some NHL jobs, or did this completely come out of the blue?
You know what? I don't know of any times when his name was specifically tied to a certain job. That being said, I knew that scouts and NHL people and GMs had high opinions of him, especially some of the players he's developed that have gone on to the NHL. Guys like Jonathan Taves, Zach Parise, TJ Oshie, Travis Zajac, all those guys have come through here when he was the head coach. So, I knew that they had a high opinion of him. I knew they have had a ton of success here. They've been to the Frozen Four 7 times in his 11 years as head coach. So, that's something that it's hard to believe will ever happen again. But, and then ESPN had an article a few years ago where they listed all the top NHL head coaching candidates in different places. So who's the most likely American League coach to be the next NHL coach? Who's the next most likely CHL guy, the most likely European coach? And they did college, and the guy they listed in college was Dave Hakstol. I knew he was on the radar of NHL teams, but, it's always a little bit of a surprise when it happens.
Brad, you cover college hockey, and we don't see too many coaches go from the college game to the pro game. What about Dave would tell you that his style will be the right fit for the NHL game? Because obviously there's a lot of people who are asking that question and are concerned that, we don't see this since 1982. This really hasn't happened.
It doesn't happen very often. I'm not sure why. I guess maybe the different game schedules. College hockey, you basically play Fridays and Saturday nights, and you play the same team back-to-back nights, and then the new team the next week. And it's more of a, UNG plays like 45, 46 games a year, not 82. So maybe that has something to do with it. Why do I think his style will be successful in the NHL? I think he's always run the program here like an NHL program, just in the way they prepare, the way they practice, the way they play. He's a guy, his teams like to, get up and down the ice, but he's also, don't give up a lot of odd man rushes and things the other way. He does like to see his defensemen get involved in the play. I think one of the things that has to be attractive for an NHL team is that he has had success every single year. And at the college level, your roster changes over. Some years are rebuilding years. Some years, maybe you have a really strong D-core. Other years you have, a really strong forward crew and maybe not as strong on the back end. No matter what makeup of team he's had success. So not every team has played exactly the same way, but they still win. And I think that's maybe something that can translate, that this is whatever team he gets handed to him, he can win with. Another thing that's interesting is that the teams here have been really successful in, second games a lot of times at series. This year, the season starts in October. It was March until they lost a game on Saturday night. They just wear down teams, and that has to be part of it. You play how many Saturday night games, 20 of them, and you don't lose until March. I think it'll be really interesting to see his teams in the 7-game series, what they can do if they can be effective in wearing down opponents. In college, you don't get to play a 7-game series, so I'm really curious to see his teams do that.
Brad Schlossman's with us here from the Grand Forks Herald. He covered Coach Hakstol at the University of North Dakota, and obviously one of the big things will be his demeanor and style. In the college, those guys are not getting paid. They got scholarships. Here they're getting paid. Is that something that you wonder, as a guy who covers the college game, do you wonder whether his style and demeanor will translate to the NHL game?
Yeah, I guess I am curious how some guys will respond to it. I mean, obviously here he's a very highly respected guy, and I'm sure basically here you have to get on board with him, or you're not going to be on board. And in the NHL, you have contracts. You can't really get rid of players who aren't on board as easily as you can in the college game. And UND really hasn't had to do that here. One of the things that he has the luxury in college, he gets to pick the guys he has. He can go out and recruit check character and stuff like that. And sometimes in the NHL, you just get handed to you what you get handed to you. So it'll be interesting to see. He's not able to build his own team. I'm sure he'll have some say in some things, but I think that'll be a little bit of an adjustment, getting handed a team instead of being able to build it yourself.
Now, Brad, you had tweeted earlier that he twice turned down this job because he was unsure about leaving. In the end, I don't know if you got a chance to talk to him or anybody around him. Why did he finally buckle and make the decision to leave?
Yeah, well, for starters, for people who maybe aren't quite as familiar with college hockey, UND it's a little bit of like a Mike Krzyzewski situation. UND is one of the top programs in college hockey. He's very well compensated at UND. I'm sure not as well as the Flyers will be paying him, but there's 12,000 fans at every North Dakota game. They sell out a 12,000 seat arena. That's a $105 million rink here. It's super nice if you haven't seen it. So I mean, it's a really good situation here. And in college, it's one of those things. Do you want to maybe create a legacy and you have a lot more job security? Or the NHL, I think I just looked at since the 70s, the longest tenured Flyers coach is 4 years. So I mean, there is the job security aspect, and so I think that's something he looked at. All along, he said if he was going to make the jump to the NHL, it had to be the right situation. And I think when he met with Ron Hakstol, he was convinced that this was the right situation for him. And I think obviously he has a lot of the same philosophies as Ron Hakstol, and Ron knows how Dave runs his program. As Ron's son Brett played here for 3 years, so Ron's very familiar with Dave Hakstol in North Dakota, and I think Ron made him comfortable with feeling like this is the right place for him.
So, Brad, you've been around him. You've been around this game for a while, the college game that is, and I see some people in the college, the pro game. I saw Craig Custance from ESPN tweet, the more people I talk to, the more I like this hiring. Do people in North Dakota right now think that Dave will be a successful guy in the NHL?
I do think they do, just because he's just been so successful every year here. Every set of circumstances. One thing that's interesting, I'll say, is some of his teams have started slow here. A lot of his teams actually have. He has been a master at having his teams play their best hockey down the stretch. And so for the Flyers fans, if your team starts slow next year, just hang tight a little bit and see what happens, because up here, the first few years, everyone would freak out. By November, everyone's melting down, and then by March, the team, February, March, the team was on an absolute roll. So that's something I'm curious to see if he can translate that, and that's something. And I guess the other thing people will notice is he's not super emotional on the bench. Some coaches are really, really super animated. He is not. Some people may mistake that right away for a lack of intensity or something. He certainly does not lack intensity. He's probably among the most intense coaches I've ever been around, but he just does not show a lot of emotion on the bench. So those are two things to look for next year.
Well, interesting stuff from you, Brad. We appreciate a couple minutes of your time, as obviously the Flyers make a outside-the-box thinking move today. Dave Hakstol is the new head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, and if you missed my interview with Dave earlier, check it out on our YouTube channel. But, Brad, we appreciate you adding some more insight for us.
Thanks a lot, guys.